The Lunaverse, Chapter 5, Helping Hands, Episode 3, 4, 3. Now, Bon Bon, Trixie said as he backed away from the advancing earth pony, hooves scrabbling on the wooden floor of her kitchen. Calm down. Calm down, Bon Bon demanded. Calm down. What did you do to her? Nothing, Lyra said. Bon Bon jumped, as though surprised that Lyra was still capable of speech, then turned to regard the former unicorn. On laying eyes on her, she unconsciously backed away several steps, then caught herself. Lyra? It's still me, Lyra said, holding up her paw slowly. I'm still me. She let out a sight sigh. Okay. Remember how Trixie made you think I was invisible and stuck like that? That's because we didn't want you to worry. That's also why we didn't want you touching me. And I'm sorry we lied, and we shouldn't have. Bon Bon stared, wide-eyed. So, this is what happened? She asked, eyes darting over to Lyra's form, taking in the inverted hocks, the paws, the compressed face, the pointed teeth. It's not my fault, Trixie cried out. The spell was mislabeled in the book. It was Princess Luna. I thought everything was correct. I thought I was going to be turning Lyra into a zebra, not a whatever this thing is. Bear, Lyra supplied. You're not a bear. You don't look anything like a bear. Well, I have to be something, and until we know what, I might as well be a bear, Lyra exclaimed, before looking back to Bon Bon. We can fix this, Bon Bon. Trixie and me are going to fix this, no matter what. Worst case scenario, she's stuck like this for a week, Trixie said. Princess Luna will... I don't care about Princess Luna! Bon Bon shouted, turning to face Trixie again, advancing slowly. How could you do this to her? I didn't mean to. Her show is in 3 hours. What is she supposed to do, Trixie? Bon Bon jabbed a hoof at Lyra for a moment. She can't go to Canterlot looking like that. I know. I'm trying to so you're supposed to be her friend, Bon Bon exclaimed. By now, Trixie had ran out of space to back away, and was pressed up against the wall as Bon Bon bore down on her. What kind of friend turns a sub-pony into a bear? A bear! Right before one of the defining moments of her... Trixie backed into the wall, and was seemingly Equestria pony bearing down on her, did the only thing she could think of. Her horn glowed, and she shoved Bon Bon away from her telekinetically. She had intended to be only a foot or two, and relatively gentle at that, but her panicked state saw to it that Bon Bon was pushed halfway across the room, hard enough to make the earth pony stumble. When she got to her hooves under her again, looked at Trixie, there was no doubt as to her intention. "C'est con es!" Trixie cursed. Now, Bon Bon. Lyra tried, starting forward. Sweetie, wait a moment. Trixie didn't mean to. We don't have time to... Bon Bon charged. I'm sorry, folks, but apparently Bon Bon's going to kill 2 of our prominent cast members. Tune in next week, where I will proceed to do live reads of Cadence Verse stories from now on. Against all odds, Trixie remembered to turn Lyra invisible again, as both dashed out of the residency. Trixie closed the door as soon as both of them were out, horn glowing brightly as a cerulean aura surrounded the portal, holding it fast as Bon Bon slammed into it. She had probably intended to break it down, but Trixie managed to hold it in place, though the shock traveled straight through her horn. She grimaced against the pain as she heard a dazed thump from the other side of the door. That sounded like it hurt, Trixie noted. She had managed to grab the zebra spellbook during her second pass through the kitchen, having run out of it and into her living room, where she and Lyra had tried, and failed, to reason with Bon Bon. Bon Bon? Lyra asked, leaning up against the door. You okay, sweetie? She's fine. Earth pony, Trixie said, frowning slightly as she noticed Lyra beginning to shiver in the cold winter afternoon. The sun was already way down the horizon, and the temperature, not very high to begin with, was dropping. She turned around, getting ready to make a beeline for the train station with Lyra. She had a plan that might work if they couldn't find some ritual in the book for the train ride. But she noticed that the two of them weren't alone. Standing in front of the yard of their residency, looking at Trixie in confusion, was a small gray unicorn filly, bundled up in a winter coat, hat, and carrying her school bag. "Oh, Dinky!" Trixie exclaimed. Then after a moment adding, "Hi!" As she tried to figure out why the daughter of Dizzy Dew could be coming to see her, she was fairly certain she hadn't made any arrangements to see Dinky that day. So this was likely a social call. Or perhaps Dinky was coming by to see if Trixie could help her with telekinesis more. Normally, unicorn foals could count on parents or older siblings to help them master that skill. But all Dinky had was her mother, a Pegasus. Dizzy Dew was a helpful mother in all regards, but she simply couldn't help Dinky out in that case. So, Trixie had stepped in. Plus, Dinky was a really adorable kid. Trixie sometimes wondered if being adorable was going to end up being Dinky's special talent. "Hi, Dinky," Lyra's disappointed voice added, from next to Trixie. That broke Trixie from a reverie, as she shot a glare at Lyra, who had the good sense to look embarrassed again, as she put her hands to her mouth in embarrassment. Dinky stared. "Hi," she responded, slowly creeping forward and looking to where Lyra was, though it was fairly obvious that the filly couldn't penetrate Trixie's invisibility spell. "Miss Heartstrings?" "You can just call me Lyra," Lyra said, thinking something surprised at the sound of the voice from, as far as she could tell, nowhere. It's really weird, talking to nothing." Trixie's brow furrowed at that, and her horn glowed as she waved a hoof. In front of Dinky, a facsimile of Lyra seemed to have materialized from nothing, a bright grin on her features. "My horn's not that short," Lyra objected, as Dinky looked at Trixie in confusion. The illusion of Lyra, meanwhile, hadn't moved its mouth. "Illusion," Trixie explained to the filly before glancing at Lyra, the real Lyra. "And yes, it is, and we don't have time to argue that now." Can you turn the Lyra invisible? And now you can't make her not invisible, and only you can see her? Dinky asked, as she mulled over the information in front of her. "And make her giant, since you keep looking up to talk to her?" There was a pause, as Lyra and Trixie looked to each other. "Sure," Trixie said after a moment. "That's what happened." Dinky eyed Trixie. "No, it isn't," she objected to the obviously transparent lie. "No, it isn't," Trixie echoed as she and Lyra began walking toward the front gate, Dinky following, and the illusion of Lyra keeping pace, trotting along normally, though her bright grin didn't move, and her movements were exaggerated, more like a puppet moving than a pony. Still, Trixie thought it was a pretty good figment for something she had thrown up on a whim. Trixie opened the book in front of her, looking it over. "Look, we've narrowed it down to just these three. All we need to do is..." "The last ritual took half an hour to set up, and it didn't even do anything!" Lyra exclaimed. "The train leaves in 15 minutes. There was a pause. Trixie glanced to Lyra, the former unicorn using her forelegs to hug her barrel tightly, and while she hopped from one foot to another against the cold ground. "And my hooves are freezing! Or whatever these things are called!" Trixie opened her mouth to say something, then paused. "I feel like I'm forgetting something." Crash! Dinky and Trixie both turned around at the sound of glass and wood breaking, and saw a cream-colored, blue and pink maned earth pony rising from the garden in front of the residency. Without thinking, Trixie's horn flashed blue, as she covered herself with the same invisibility glamour that she had wrapped around Lyra. After a moment she remembered Dinky, and made her coat the same spell. But by then, Bonbon had leapt over the iron fence that surrounded the residency, and landed almost on top of Dinky Dew, a look of pure rage on her face. But a look that was, fortunately, not directed at the filly. Instead, focused first to her left, then to her right, as though she was a predator looking around for prey. "Where did she go?" Bonbon demanded. She looked down to Dinky, her gaze softening a little. "Dinky Dew, sugar, where did Trixie go? I'll give you a free candy for a month if you tell me." Wink, 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 wink. Trixie held her breath. not daring to exhale. Dinky was a smart filly. Seemed to know that Trixie had turned herself invisible. And Trixie wouldn't blame her at all if Bon Bon told that in the face of such unbridled fury from the Earth Pony mare. Dinky Doo told Bon Bon, pointing down the street. In a flash, Bon Bon was off. Trixie felt her heart flutter at that, surprised at the filly's choice. Not that she was complaining. As soon as Bon Bon was out of sight, Trixie let herself bleed back into reality. The invisibility glamour she woven over herself falling over her like a blue mist that quickly dissipated into nothingness. She didn't recreate the Lyra figment, nor make Lyra invisible. Instead, looking to Dinky. "Thanks," she said, her gratitude entirely genuine. "I owe you, kiddo." "She is going to be so mad at me," Lyra's voice mourned, as her teeth chattered. Being a naked bear inside the winter was not looking like it was working out for her. Dinky looked at Trixie.
"Actually, I can't be a favor," she said. "See, here's this new jewelry store, and I need to get something there today for my mama, but my mama can't nowhere else."
"We don't have time," Lyra interrupted. The blue unicorn looked to the invisible to every pony else Lyra, then back to Dinky. The filly seemed distraught. But Lyra was right. Whatever was troubling Dinky could not have compared to the situation that she and Lyra were currently in. She was only a filly after all, and Trixie had to prioritize. "We don't," Trixie said, unable to keep the pain tone from her voice. "I'm sorry, kiddo. I really am. But me and Lyra need to hoof it, like whatever, to the train station. She has a show in Canterlot that she can't miss." Dinky stared wide-eyed. "But," she objected, "but I need—" "I'm sorry. I am so sorry," Trixie said as she turned. If she let Dinky get any further than that, she knew for a fact that the filly would be able to convince her to stay. That wouldn't be fair to Lyra. She did look behind at the foal as she ran, though, calling, "I'll make it up to you! I promise!" "Trixie!" Lyra called as the unicorn ran. "Slow down!" Trixie glanced behind her. She wasn't riding particularly fast, but Lyra had fallen significantly behind, and she was stumbling, teeth chattering. Trixie stopped, and Lyra did as well. Bending over, hands on her knees as she breathed and shivered. "I can't run as fast," the former unicorn said, "and I'm freezing." Trixie grimaced at that, regretting that she had taken off her cape back at the Residency, which had, among other enchantments, magic woven into it that allowed the wearer to retain all body heat, making it excellent proof against cold weather, despite being made of very thin material. Lyra would have used it right now. She tapped a hoof on the ground a few moments, thinking. "Okay, hang on," she said, closing her eyes and thinking back to the spell that Lyra had shown her earlier today, the one that summoned Lyra's Lyra. First, she cast the same spell, refreshing it in her mind. She caught the Lyra as it fell, then passed it to Lyra, who stared in confusion, wondering how a musical instrument was going to help against the cold. Trixie had closed her eyes again, as she thought about the spell in her mind, the way it moved. In her mind's eye, she saw it as a string of raw magical energy, one tied around a horn, the other end tied around the Lyra. With a slight twitch of her head, she mentally untied her end wrapped around the Lyra. Next, she cast out her magical senses, racing towards her home. The Residency would have been too far away under normal circumstances, but what she was looking for in it, her cape, was intimately familiar to her, such as she wore every day and had owned for years. The fact that the cape was magical, as well, helped her find it, sitting in the kitchen where she left it. "Ha!" Trixie mentally proclaimed as she wrapped around the business end of the calling spell around her cape and tugged. In front of her, a cerulean spear appeared. After a moment, it popped, and Trixie's cape fluttered to the ground. She picked it up with telekinesis and held it out. "Here," she said. Lyra took the cape and tied it around her neck, then picked it up and held her Lyra close, though she looked disappointed as she did. "I'm going to need more than just this," she said. "It's magic. It'll take a few minutes to kick in, but trust me, you'll be fine in no time," Trixie said, casting a second invisibility glamour over her cape, and a third over Lyra's Lyra. It would have do to look like she was being stalked by a floating magician cape after all. She then turned around and resumed running. Lyra following as best as she could. As Trixie galloped, she shook her head a little. The Deceiver spells had drawn magic from the fairy air, and hadn't been taxing in the slightest. But between a modified shield spell to hold her front door in place, several invisibility spells in quick succession, the figment of Lyra conjured for Dinky, Lyra's summoning spell, and now her modified version for her own cape, Trixie was starting to feel slightly lightheaded. Despite magic being her special talent, Trixie didn't have any deeper reservoir of magic to draw upon than any pony else. In fact, she suspected that, though she'd never tell the other unicorn, Lyra had more raw magic inside her. Further, casting her new Summon Kate spell had cost valuable time, a minute or two at most. But now any delusions that she had harbored about gathering ingredients for a final ritual on the train were dashed. That meant Trixie's only option, as long as Lyra was so insistent on not missing her show, was the one she was certain was going to end up landing her in a hospital.
To think the cape's starting to work,
Lyra chattered as they neared the train station. Her eyes widened.
Trixie, how are you going to pay for tickets?
Ticket, Trixie corrected as he grimaced again, knowing exactly how she was going to.
Also, shut up! You're invisible. Don't talk. That defeats the entire purpose.
Lyra pressed her lips together as Lyra stopped just inside the train station with 5 minutes to spare. The 5 o'clock train was, thankfully, looking like it was only going to be sparsely occupied. There were maybe half a dozen ponies waiting near the track, and no line leading up to the single teller, who was too busy reading a newspaper to notice Trixie's entrance. Even as Trixie and Lyra entered, they heard the hoot of a train whistle nearby. 5 o'clock train to Canterlot began to pull into the station. Trixie's horn glowed beneath her hat. She cast an illusion of saddlebags over her back. Having created them, she pulled her hat over her head, obscuring her horn entirely, and trotting forward to the teller, Lyra following close by.
"Excuse me,"
Trixie said as he came up to the counter. The teller looked up from his newspaper, revealing a yellow-coated earth pony who regarded Trixie with a bored look.
"1 ticket to Canterlot, please. Private cabin."
The teller glanced at the clock that hung on the train station's wall, then back to Trixie as he went to work making out the ticket.
"That was close."
"You have no idea,"
Trixie breathed. The teller also didn't look like he cared much, but he didn't say so as he finished using a hole puncher to stamp out Trixie's ticket, marking her destination and number of passengers.
"That'll be 30 minutes, ma'am."
Trixie nodded, looking to her illusory saddlebags, the glow of her horn comfortably obscured beneath her hat. This was the easy part. Open the bag, levitate out of 30 bits, and set the bits down on the counter. The bits she set down looked old and worn, but the face of Luna was still visible on one side, the equestrian coat of arms on the other, and the sides were rigid, as normal. No pony could have told, at first glance, they were fake. But the teller wasn't going to just glance at them, and that was the hard part. As he reached out a hoof for them to scoop them into the open, waiting door, Trixie focused on the bits, and at the same time on her memory of the very first time she had held bits in her hooves. The feel of the silver face, the raised image of Luna, the ridges on the side. She focused on her memories of the sound of them clinking against each other, the sound they made on a wooden countertop as they dragged along by hoof, the sound of them falling comfortably into a cast drawer. As she focused on the memories, she pushed them forward and down and into the coins themselves. To Trixie, it felt like she was trying to lift a mountain. Fooling sight or hearing by themselves, or even both together, was relatively easy, since in neither case did the victim actually ever have to interact with the illusion or ghost sound directly. Fully to sense of touch was an entire different proposition. It would have been trying if she had been figmenting was a single coin, never mind 30 of them. But it was a challenge she met as the teller slid the bits into his cast drawer and closed it. Trixie immediately dispelled them once they were out of sight. Suppressing a gasp of relief as the earth pony passed her ticket to her, she took it in her mouth, giving her horn a break for a few minutes as he set off for the train, finished pulling into the station, and the conductor stepped out to announce the train's destination.
"All aboard! Train now leaving for Canterlot, Manhattan, Philadelphia, and all points west."
I've always wanted to do that. To her relief, she saw the train's private cabins were built in modern style,
And Cucamonga.
each one opening out into the platform itself, rather than requiring her and Lyra to walk through the train car to their destination. She quickly handed off her ticket to the conductor and stepped into the cabin he directed her to, Lyra following silently the whole time, cussing her lyre close. She had stopped shivering at least, but was looking around furtively, as though that worried Trixie's spell would collapse at any moment. As soon as the conductor closed the door to her cabin, and Lyra had squeezed her giant form into the cabin's back, Trixie drew the curtains to the cabin's window and closed, dispelling all of her maintained illusions. First, her false saddlebags. Then, the 3 invisibility glamours over Lyra, her cape, and Lyra's instrument. She breathed out a sigh of relief as she did, saluting a little before settling down into one of the private cabin's benches. "Can I talk now?" Lyra asked.
"Probably. Keep your voice down, though, in case the conductor walks by."
Lyra nodded, even though they had succeeded in boarding the train, even though they were on their way to Canterlot. Lyra looked anything but happy, a face that was obvious even despite her changed face. She looked to her lyre, then back to Trixie. So this is it then," she said. "I'm going to Canterlot like this. I'm going to play like this, assuming every pony doesn't run away from me in horror anyway, and then afterwards, Bon Bon will." She trailed off as she thought of her mare friend, and the consequences of running away from her. Trixie eyed Lyra, specifically to her hands.
"I have a question,"
she said, the train beginning to move.
"But you're not going to like it.
What?
Can you play?"
Lyra snorted slightly at the question, before pausing and looking at her hands. Her eyes slowly began to widen. "Oh, stars above! I didn't think about that," she said, grasping her lyre. She held her hand in a slightly cut position, trying to imitate the shape of a hoof, and then attempted to strum out a few notes. What resulted was certainly sound, not even an unpleasant sound, but it was not music. "Oh no," Lyra breathed. "Oh no. Oh no, 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 no."
"Calm down," Trixie said quickly. "You've got 2 hours to practice. Music is your special talent."
"Is it?" Lyra asked, somehow managing to keep her voice down despite her panic. She looked to her hips, her flank, which was bare. I don't even have my cutie mark anymore. Do I have a special talent?"
"Every pony has one,"
Trixie stated firmly. "But I'm not a pony. I'm a 2-legged, naked, hoofless freak."
"You're not," Trixie countered, jabbing a hoof at Lyra. "You are a pony. You just don't look like one right now. But music is still your special talent. You are still Lyra Heartstrings."
She waved her hoof.
"You just need to practice and figure things out. But we are not going to Canterlot just for you to give up."
Lyra stared at Trixie, before gritting her teeth, somewhat scary given the presence of incisors, and nodding at Trixie's words. "Right," she said. "Right. This can't be for nothing."
"It won't be,"
Trixie said, as she looked to the Deceiver spellbook, then sighed.
"We don't have time, the stuff, or the room for another ritual, so I've got a plan for getting you on stage without any pony knowing that you're this."
She waved a hoof up and down to indicate Lyra's changed body. Lyra nodded, though she didn't look up. She was staring at her hands, moving them around as she tried to figure out how to make them work for her lyre. "What is it?"
Trixie considered. "First," she said, "I need you to describe to me exactly what you are planning on wearing."
Chapter 6. The majestic and lovely Lyra Heartstrings. "Just make sure you get my horn length right," Lyra requested while she continued to play her lyre, and as the train conductors announced that there was only 10 minutes until Canterlot, she managed to produce actual music by using the knuckles of her fingers, but they were clumsy, and the shortest finger tended to keep getting in the way. She was trying, and failing, not to let it get to her.
"Your horn," Trixie responded, "is this short. It's about an inch shorter than mine, making it about an inch and a half shorter than normal for a mare your height."
Lyra had previously had her eyes closed, but they snapped a moment open at that. "It's not that much." Whoa. The former unicorn hadn't been watching Trixie work, keeping her eyes closed as she tried to figure out how to play her lyre, trying not to be distracted by Trixie working glamour after glamour over herself. As a result, She was always completely taken aback by what she had saw. Normally, if one knew what they were looking for, one could always tell an illusion from the real image, as illusions rarely got all the fine details right. This was one of those rare occasions. Trixie had done everything right. She hadn't just replicated what Lyra's coat color, she had also replicated its appearance. The slightly shorter than normal, somewhat thicker hair. Trixie hadn't simply recolored her own mane and done it up. She had duplicated the ponytail that Lyra had described to a T, and as Lyra moved the false, Trixie moved the false mane moved, and shook and stretched like a normal mane. Trixie had gotten every detail of Lyra's golden eyes correct. The length of her snout, the curve of her hooves, the lines on her face, the thickness of her eyebrows and lashes, and yes, even the length of her horn, and the details of the spiral that wound their way up its length. But surprising that was that even the dress illusion Trixie had woven over her cape. At first, it didn't move right as Trixie picked up what looked like a full white gold dress and attached it around her throat like a cape. But then the dress seemed to shimmer, and everything fell into place. The golden brooch was a stylized lyre on the front, the white saddle with aquamarine lines running across it, the fine details of the fabric folding over her croup and dock, the complementing golden shoes that went over each hoof appeared. Lyra was one of the few ponies who could wear gold and pull it off without reminding ponies of the tyrant's son. Trixie looked at Lyra, smiling a little with one eyebrow raised, mimicking an expression that Lyra often wore when looking for praise. Her horn glowed, gold, not its normal blue, and with a golden aurora appeared around her a wizard's hat, which was unchanged. Trixie put the hat atop Lyra. "Well?" she asked. Trixie had even gotten Lyra's voice right. Lyra responded, blinking. Great, yeah." Trixie pouted. It was strange for Lyra to see her own body making such a face, without her wanting to. "Great?" she asked. "Great, that's it. Princess Luna herself wouldn't be able to see through this." "I've never seen an illusion this complicated," Lyra observed, leaning forward and inspecting Trixie. The details stood up to any scrutiny, no matter how close Lyra got or what angle she looked at an illusion. Trixie grinned brightly. "That's better," she said, satisfied. "And it's not all one illusion. There's about half a dozen of me over me, plus another 4 or 5 in the cape, all working together to support one another. Mind, I can't disguise something like this. If any pony tries to detect magic on me, they're probably going to go blind." That's all right. You could just say there's some magic in the dress," Lyra observed, gently putting a finger on Trixie's coat. Lyra knew that her coat was a little coarser than normal, but Trixie hadn't done anything to affect her own softer hair. Then again, Lyra supposed that this wasn't going to be a problem. "How long can you maintain this?" Trixie grimaced. "As long as I have to," she said, shifting from one hoof to the next, and back again for a few moments. "But, Lyra, as long as I can look at you, I really think you should reconsider me having an accident and needing to miss a show. The blame won't be on you if we fake you. I don't know, getting hit by a carrot." Lyra shook her head. "I can't. That would involve doctors and paramedics and just too many ponies to keep the fact that you're, well, you and not me, a secret. Maybe say it's a kidnapping." Lyra didn't dignify that idea with a response. Instead, sitting back against the inner door of their cabin, getting back to her lyre, which she told herself in no certain terms was not a hopeless struggle, that she could still play it no matter what. At the moment, the plan was to have Trixie appear on stage, disguised as Lyra, and pretend to be playing Lyra's lyre via telekinesis. The fact that she was using telekinesis would disguise that in reality. Lyra would be on stage, invisible, and actually the one holding her lyre and playing. It was certainly more likely to succeed that Trixie's awful suggesting using her photographic memory spell to try and memorize the entire piece and then play it. Somewhat more likely, anyway, Lyra's attempt to try and use her knuckles to string 2 chords together failed once again. "Oh, I don't believe this!" she groaned. "I can't even play Smoke on the Water. Every pony can play Smoke on the Water. It's the string equivalent of Moonlight Sonata." "I don't know what it is," Trixie admitted as he removed her hat from Lyra's head and looked it over, horn glowing, its normal blue, not Lyra's gold, and pushing magic into it. You know, Lyra said, humming out the tune for a few moments to continue, the piano piece by Beetroot? Trixie considered the music for a moment, pausing and imbuing magic into her hat. I can play chopsticks, she stated, smiling as though at an accomplishment. The look of a Trixie-like grin appearing on Lyra's face when stating that she could play something that barely qualified as an obstacle tune was enough to make Lyra put her hands to use in trying not to strangle Trixie. For that matter, it was possible that it would have been enough had the inner door to their cabin not chosen at that precise moment to slide open. Bonbon was aware of the fact that she could, sometimes, be a very moody pony, difficult to get along with. However, at the moment, if she were to, for example, be angry enough to beat a certain blue unicorn to death with that unicorn's old dismembered hind legs, she was fairly certain that this would not constitute one of her normal mood swings, so much as a perfectly justifiable equicidal raise in temporary insanity. At a guess, she probably could get off with 20 years in jail for voluntary pony slaughter. She might, in fact, even be able to argue for involuntary pony slaughter. Maybe 10 years if she could get a accommodation for good behavior. When she opened the cabin door, she felt that there was probably a 50-50 shot of enacting her plan murderously. But there was a flash of blue, which was strange in and of itself, as Bonbon always heard that ponies with deadly intent saw red, not blue. And Bonbon found herself face to face with Lyra, actual Lyra, in her normal pony body, bedeckled in her toga-like gown that she wore to formal occasions, looking at her with wide eyes. Lyra began, before she could get any further. Lyra was pressed against the cabin's door, Bonbon's lips pressed firmly against hers. The cream-colored earth pony drew away for a few moments, stifling a relieved giggle.
The spell wore off?
She asked, raised a Trixie for gun as he kissed Lyra's lips again.
Oh, thank Luna. You know, you gave me the fright of my life.
Another kiss. Her mare friend wasn't returning them for some odd reason.
But it's fine now, and...
Another kiss. This one held for several moments, as Lyra continued not to return it. Bonbon paused at the lack of affection, pulling back from her mare friend and looking her in the eyes. Lyra herself was frozen in place, eyes wide and blushing furiously. Behind Bonbon, there was a cerulean-tinged glow for a few moments, and a few wisps of blue smoke. Lyra said, without moving her lips. Looking behind her, Bonbon found herself staring at the pale-skinned, naked bear that Trixie had turned Lyra into, who had just shut the inner cabin door and was holding up her forelegs as to ward off a buck.
The
naked bear, Lyra repeated. Bonbon turned back to the fake Lyra, Trixie in disguise, so distant part of her mind reasoned, and stared at her. Trixie stared back, frozen in place. For several long minutes, there was only silence in the cabin, as outside the train whistle blew, and the train's conductor announced 1 minute until their arrival at Canterlot Central. Bonbon let out a slight giggle. She didn't know why. After a few moments, the giggle returned and didn't go away. Behind her, Lyra began to chuckle, while Trixie joined in a few moments later, though she stopped as she noticed Bonbon's front hooves reaching up and pressing against her neck. Harder, harder, and harder. Bonbon still giggling like a schoolful all the while.
Ugh!
Trixie gasped out as Bonbon bore down on her, her own forelegs flowing and horn glowing, though her blue-tinned telekinesis wasn't helping as much as she thought otherwise.
She's choking! Help!
Bonbon felt her hind legs being grabbed by something, and found herself being dragged away from Trixie. For some reason, she was giggling.
No!
She gasped out between fits, forelegs working to try and pull her back to Trixie. For whatever reason, she didn't buck with her hind hooves.
See, I have to kill Trixie. That will undo the spell. Right, because that's how magic always works in those old stories.
No, Lyra said, pulling Bonbon back.
No, sweetie,
Magic doesn't work like that. It never has. Those stories are just holdovers from back when Pegasi and Earth ponies didn't know much about unicorns. Well, Bonbon chuckled. Well, I'm going to try it because otherwise it looks like you're. Well, if I have to guess, Trixie's going to play, or what? You're going to be on stage, invisible, right? That's nope. Going to kill Trixie. Bonbon felt four legs wrapped around her barrel. Lyra was hugging her, as best as she could with her new front legs. Her cheek pressed up against the top of Bonbon's head. Bonbon, you're, calm down, please. This is the only thing I can do. No, it isn't, Lyra exclaimed, wiggling and struggling until she was out of Lyra's grip. Turning to her mare friend, her giggles forgotten. No, it isn't. You could cancel. That'd be a death sentence on my musical career, Lyra said. At least if I wanted to do anything more serious than park concerts, weddings, and birthday parties. Bonbon pointed at Lyra. No, Lyra, that is a death sentence to your musical career. Trixie is a death sentence. Bonbon, you don't even have hooves. How are you going to play? Can you play? Where's your cue mark? You need to. Bonbon! Lyra shouted. The Earth Pony stumbled slightly at the volume, eyes somehow managing to widen more as she noticed that the muscles in Lyra's new body tensed. Her face set in a look of determination. Mouth opened slightly, and teeth, her predator teeth, gritted. After a moment of stunned quiet, Lyra continued. I'm not missing this, no matter what. Bonbon's mouth opened and closed a few times of its own accord, as he regarded Lyra and took in her statement. Her absolute determination. She said, I'm just trying to protect you. Lyra blinked. I know, she said after a few moments, leaning forward and pressing her head to Bonbon's own, eyes closed. Bonbon's own eyes closed as he leaned into the nuzzle, imagining that it was her Lyra she was touching, not whatever Lyra had become. I know. You're scared for me. I'm scared for me. But this has to happen. Bonbon nodded understanding. Lyra put absolutely nothing in front of her. She knew, but there were some things that stood on equal ground with their relationship. Her musical career was one of those things, or at least her intended musical career. The dream of it she had for as long as Bonbon had known her. If Lyra said that backing out of this concert in some way would leave that dream stillborn, no. No matter how crazy Lyra's intentions were, no matter how stupid, Bonbon couldn't do that to her. Okay, she whispered softly, leaning up and kissing Lyra's chained lips, ignoring that they felt completely different, that her short, pointed nose got in the way. Okay, how can I help? What can I do? Help Trixie. Bonbon leaned away at that, opening her eyes and regarding Lyra incredulously. But, she objected, but she's the one who got you into this mess. And she's trying to help me get out of it. Lyra countered. Okay, so just lay off of her for a bit. At least until the concert is over. We can deal for things there, okay? Bonbon grimaced, mulling over Lyra's request in her head before sighing. Okay, all right. She turned around, looking to Trixie, ignoring that she had done far too good a job of creating her Lyra disguise. What do you need? Trixie considered. One hoof was at her neck, looking like she was still trying to get over Bonbon kissing her, and still trying to kill her in rapid succession. Okay, she said, her voice even disguised as Lyra's. Bonbon idly wondered if Trixie would now actually be able to hold a tune. Okay, right. First, I need to know this or else it's going to be bugging me all night. How did you get aboard? Me and Lyra barely got aboard on time, and you ran off in the wrong direction. I had a seat reserved, Bonbon informed her. Once I realized that Dinky had probably lied to me, I rushed as fast as I could to the station. She made a face. What? You think I was going to miss this? Trixie shrugged, conceding the point. And this is a 2-hour train ride. Why did it take you so long to find our cabin? Bonbon's eyes widened a little. Well, I looked through the normal passenger sections first, then tried to get into the private cabins. But there were some railway marshals who tried to stop me. Could you maybe use that magic of yours to disguise me when we're getting off? I might have given one or two of them concussions. Lyra and Trixie stared. Maybe 3. Trixie ended up simply turning Bonbon invisible, while giving her hat, into which she had woven a temporary invisibility enchantment, and her cape was retained as heat retaining enchantment and was, along with Lyra, rendered invisible by Trixie's hat. And to Lyra, as soon as the 3 of them were a block from the train station, she dispelled the invisibility spell that surrounded Bonbon, and the trio began making their way to Princess Luna Academy of Advanced Magic and Higher Learning, usually just referred to Luna's Magic Academy, or simply the Academy. By now, adult twins had begun to manifest at the base of Trixie's horn, the result of maintaining her perfect illusion. Compared to how she had no doubt be feeling in a couple of hours from maintaining the illusion and Lyra's invisibility for so long, the twins was probably nothing. Okay, Lyra said, ignoring Trixie's glare at the fact that she was talking while invisible, while walking to the gates of the Academy. Once we're inside, just tuck into a closet or something. I'll give you your cape back, and my lyre. Then go see a pony named Troubledore. He's the one in charge of the night. He'll show you to your seat, and we'll just stay there until it's time to perform. Trixie shook her head, then caught sight of the clock perched inside the Academy. It read 7:14, just over 45 minutes to showtime. Close. You'll need to hold on to your lyre to practice. Bonbon jumped a little at that, glancing to Trixie. She really can't play, the pony demanded. No, Lyra said morosely. Not yet. Trixie countered, offering a smile to Bonbon as they passed through the Academy's gates and started making their way toward the concert hall. That's why she needs to practice. She'll figure out everything in time for the show. Bonbon stared at Trixie before nodding. Right, she agreed. Right. You will, Lyra. I know you will. Trixie nodded in confirmation. As they approached the concert hall, Bonbon had to leave them. She was part of the audience, not the show, and so had to enter through the main door rather than the side door that Lyra directed Trixie to, which was flanked by a pair of university security. They let Trixie through without stopping her, though, apparently recognizing Lyra on sight. Okay, Lyra began in a low voice, or started to begin. But almost immediately upon entering, Trixie and Lyra found themselves face to face with a red-coated unicorn stallion, with a dark blue mane that had a shock of bright pink running through it, and a cutie mark of 2 crossed mandolins. He was wearing a dinner jacket and bow tie.
Lyra!
The unicorn exclaimed, coming up to Trixie and said in a huff,
You made it! I was just starting to get worried.
Lyra opened her mouth to respond, but put a hand to it before she could ruin things. Trixie, for her part, didn't miss a beat, taking the pony's hoof and shaking it. Sorry, the terrain was slow, she said, glancing to Lyra as she did. The former unicorn mouthed out, That's Troubledore to Trixie, pointing to him. Trixie nodded, though whether to Lyra's information or simply going along with what she had, Lyra didn't know.
One day, Luna will get them to run on time,
Troubledore said. Trixie's eyes narrowed. She tries, she said, but really, that's a ministerial problem.
Sure,
Troubledore interrupted, looking Trixie over.
You're not planning on going on stage like that, are you?
The disguised unicorn's eyes narrowed a little further than that. Of course not.
Well, where's...
Trixie reared up slightly, horn glowing. Gold now, not Trixie's normal blue, and Lyra felt magic at her throat. Trixie's cape was taken from her shoulders and becoming visible again, or at least the dress it had been glamored to look like, slinking around her own shoulders. To Troubledore, it would have looked like Lyra had conjured it for nothingness. She took a step back as Trixie grinned brightly, repeating the process of Lyra's lyre. Ha! She proclaimed, breaking one hoof across the strings of the lyre in a single brisk moment. Behold! The majestic and lovely Lyra Heartstrings is ready to play. Lyra nearly resumed the murder of Trixie that Bonbon had started earlier. She settled, instead, on covering her face with the palm of one hand, as though the ability to see would somehow wipe what had just occurred from reality. Troubledore seemed taken aback as well.
Oh, you're all right.
Of course, Trixie said, getting down off her hind legs and regarding Troubledore. She frowned slightly. Don't all musicians have stage personas? Lyra's other hand joined the front one, covering her face.
Oh, sure.
Dumbledore responded.
Maybe tone things down a little. We don't want to give the wrong impression. We are looking for new students, remember?
Trixie pouted. Fine.
You're sure you're okay?
Of course. Trixie said firmly, smiling brightly. It's not like I haven't done this before. Lyra was all of 5 seconds from planting her foot somewhere firmly in Trixie's flank.
I thought this was your first solo show,
Dumbledore said. Trixie waved him off. My first solo show, sure, but it is not my first show, and it's not like I haven't played by myself before, in a park or out on the Academy grounds. This really isn't anything different, except I'm getting paid this time. Dumbledore began, seemed confused. Trixie realized her mistake almost immediately. Again waved off Dumbledore. In recognition, she exclaimed, once again rearing up and strumming every string on Lyra's lyre. And all the ponies that will see me perform tonight, my name will get out there to record record companies and orchestras and such. Ah. Dumbledore responded. The stallion had backed away several more steps for Trixie.
Well, you can just take your seat over there on stage. I need to,
A few moments of trying to think of what to do. He turned and walked away at a brisk pace. Lyra watched him go, before looking to Lyra. You're not getting paid? She demanded.